As many people know, you are most commonly known for your treatise on crimes and punishment. Are there any other accomplishments, acts, or events relative to your profession as a jurist and criminologist? Well, I excelled at mathematics in my young years, but after studying Montesquieu, I became more interested and focused on economics. Similar to wrong question. As we were looking into you and doing some background research about you prior to this interview, we found it quite interesting that you first published your treatise anonymously, and then after it received positive feedback, you published the treatise again, and that time credited yourself as the author. Why would you post anonymously first rather than take credit of your fine work before someone else could claim it to be theirs? Similar to Martin Luther, when he nailed his 95 Theses to a door of the church, I wanted to grab the attention of all those who read it and bring it to the attention of the members of the criminal justice system. However, since it could easily be seen as criticizing the justice system and the government, if the treatise had backfired and the government wanted the creator's head, I could keep my life and pursue attempting to fix and critique the criminal justice system in a different way. If I had died, almost all hope to reform the criminal justice system would die with me. I didn't care if someone else took the credit because I had Pietro Verri who could serve as proof that I created the literature. Credit of that document wasn't worth losing my life over it. If we recall correctly, almost immediately after being published, your treatise was translated to English and French. The one translated to French was translated by Andre Morellet. Morellet had the opinion that the Italian text of what you wrote required some clarification. For that reason, he left parts out and sometimes added to it. But he mainly changed the structure of the essay by merging, or splitting chapters. The translations are so different to the point that we find the translation of Morellet is almost a separate book to your original translation. Do you agree with his translation? Do you support it, but believe that it is a different scripture written on the same subject? Or do you disagree with the text altogether? We just want to know your opinion and stance on his translation compared to yours. I agree with Morale's translation of the treatise that I published. I must admit there are some clear differences than with what I wrote, but I kind of believe that they are almost two different books. However, I fully agree with what he wrote, and he can call it his own book, but he will always give me credit as motivation to him writing it. Since his translation was more systematic than my original work, he in some ways probably made it better in order to refer back to the document in the future when at a deadlock with an argument or decision. In your treatise, you started off by calling that some type of reform in your criminal justice system and that it is needed. Now, at the time, did you know that there were few studies on a reform of the criminal justice system? If you did know that, did that motivate you to post the literature anonymously, since a call for reformation of such was almost unheard of? I was very well aware that there were little studies on a reformation of the criminal justice system. It obviously was for good reason too, suggesting that the justice system is anything except balanced can give the government not the right, but the incentive to arrest you and erase your work completely if they don't agree. And once in captivity, they will really make you experience just how unfair the justice system is. Having not enough examples to come to a conclusion that the government won't put a bounty on my head for calling for reformation of the criminal justice system, I decided to just leave my treatise unclaimed in case it had angered the government. In the treatise, you form two key philosophical theories. One of them was the social contract, and agreed upon rules and morals that the civilization naturally follows and values. Am I right? Alright. After that, this is what you stated about punishment. Punishment is justified only to defend the social contract and to ensure that everyone will be motivated to abide by it. I agree with you, however, how is killing or humiliating the lawbreaker not motivating to others not to break the law as well? It very well is motivating others to not go down the same path that the person did. However, I don't see how killing someone makes them learn their lesson. Learning a lesson requires the person to not only be alive, but to also know that for the future not to do that criminal action again. No one is perfect. If everyone was perfect, there would be no reason for a criminal justice system. If someone breaks the law, we need to change the person so that they no longer break the law, not make them suffer. We need to help people become good citizens by changing their ways if they break laws. This way they can come to the realization and start to help others and teach others not to make the same mistakes that they did. Since, according to you, the state does not have the right to take away... Oh, sorry. Wrong question again. Sorry, we were just curious to see what your opinion on execution was as being an effective way to keep witnesses of the execution in check, which brings another question to our minds. In your treatise, you stated why you condemn the death penalty. First, because the state does not possess the right to take lives, and secondly, because capital punishment is neither useful nor a necessary form of punishment. You have also stated punishment should be proportionate to the crime committed. With those two statements, how would you satisfy both of them if the person who committed the crime had committed murder? Since the state doesn't have the right to take a life away, we would put them in jail. We would put them in jail, and for any amount of time until they realize that what they did was wrong and cruel. And then we will exile them from the state because they are a potential threat. And then from there, actions will be taken if it carries on and the situation escalates. Why are you against torture? To get a confession even if you know the man is guilty. Say that I said someone is guilty of committing a crime, and I know for a fact that they are guilty. I'm the only one, though, who knows this. You don't. There's always the possibility I could be lying or just making a speculation. So now we are dealing with the possibility of the conviction and torture of an innocent man. You can't torture someone to get a confession because while in pain for a long enough time, they will admit to anything in order to stop the pain. Like confess to murder or like admit to treason. The first three... Wrong question again, sorry. In your treatise, you protested strongly against the following: arbitrary discretionary power of judges, the inconsistency and inequality of sentencing, using personal connections to get a lighter sentence, and the use of capital punishment for some minor offenses should all be outlawed in criminal justice. Excuse me. We do agree with most of that, of those powers and liberties of the government should be stripped away. However, we want to know why you think so. The first three I don't agree should be a part of the criminal justice system because they allow the system and judges to become corrupted and play games of favoritism. And it is not make the system and judges equal or serve true justice for all those who were accused of committing crimes. For the last part of the question, you should not be put to death for stealing, especially when the government can't change your ways. Can change your ways in time to the point that you not only stop stealing, but you help those find lost items or you find another way to contribute to the community in the future. After reading your treatise, we started to form a common theme that you prefer not to have a violent society. So when we found out that you believe that suicide should only be punished by God himself, we found it quite peculiar, since witnessing suicide or attempt of suicide is not only vulgar but traumatizing and causes controversy and speculation that maybe it was a murder. We must know why in your perfect criminal justice system that you envision you would condone such a violent and brutal act. If we could stop those people from committing suicide, we would. However, it seems foolish to try to punish someone who is either dead or wants to do one of the worst things that you can do to a person to themselves. If they feel like they are suffering, taxing them for trying to commit suicide won't do anything because they have no reason to pay taxes, since as soon as you assign them taxes, they will try to commit suicide before paying them at all. Imprisoning them wouldn't work because life in prison is loss of at least part of your life, and they just want to end their life altogether. And torturing them would be the worst thing you could do because you are causing them to suffer even more than they already have been, and just making them have a cruel and painful death. We don't want to get in the way of anyone's wishes who is not harming others and breaking the law. We would just prefer that if they do choose to commit suicide, that they do it in a private environment and don't attempt to take another person's life along with them. We are leaving it up to God to punish them because we ourselves aren't sure whether or not it is allowed by God to commit suicide. We know you take more of a utilitarian approach when it comes to criminal justice, correct? So it does not come to a surprise to find that you are keen on punishment, that you are not keen on punishment that is severe. Sorry. You stated in your treatise that punishment, and I quote, punishment as a means of reforming the criminal, incapacitating him from repeating his crime, and deterring others. Purpose of punishment is to create a better society, not revenge. Punishment serves to deter others from committing crimes and to prevent the criminal from repeating his crime. End quote. So your way of punishment is to deter criminal activity and dissuade the offender and others from committing the crime again. Theorize, and this was in your treatise and we copied this down. Theorize one way to do this. Free will enables people to make choices. People have a rational manner and apply it toward making choices that will help them achieve their own personal gratification. But because people act out of self-interest and their interest, sometimes it conflicts with societal laws and they commit crimes. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Alright? You believe they will be dissuaded from committing crimes if the punishment outweighs the benefit of the crime, rendering the crime an illogical choice. However, since the punishment is not severe or incapacitating them from doing it, they do the same crime over and over again for whatever reason. How would you punish them and keep them from ever committing that crime again? Would you make an acceptance to the law for just that one case, or would you change the punishment altogether to eliminate that scenario from ever happening again, and therefore deterring and dissuading others from committing a crime even more? If repeatedly a person is caught breaking the same law, we must make an exception because it is a special case that isn't like any of the other ones, and make sure that they are incapable of ever committing that crime again. If it was a violent crime, the punishment can be severe, like dismemberment, but if it isn't, we could attach an item like a heavy weight so that they can't do something like steal, because they would easily be stopped or captured in the process. I think those are all the questions we have for you for today. Thank you for coming.